want to decrease the amount of immigrants in general, but many of the immigrants that have come to Sweden in the last decades have been Muslims.
Sweden was once called a moral superpower for its welcoming treatment of migrants. But the right-wing party, the Swedish Democrats, is tapping into a growing mistrust of foreigners and a desire to keep the number of new arrivals down. Those concerns were encapsulated in one particular incident last week when video footage here showed security officers dragging a pregnant woman off a Stockholm metro, pinning her to a bench, stomach down. The police said she was travelling without a ticket and reacted angrily when they gave her a fine. Well, let's go to Stockholm now and speak to the activist and social media influencer Lovette Jallow. Lovette, thank you very much indeed for your time. Now, you have spoken to eyewitnesses who were there on the platform at that metro station when this incident happened. What did they tell you?
I think if you guys probably don't speak Swedish, so you can't hear them very well, but they're saying, be careful, she's pregnant, stop what you're doing. So I've had several contacts with about 7 eyewitnesses, some were within the train, some were outside of the train. They've all stepped forward and given their witness basically for the lady that was in question in that video. They just felt that it was the way it was handled was very brutal, especially since they already knew she was pregnant and clutching her stomach.
What about her reaction and the police saying that she got angry? Presumably, that's their justification for manhandling her the way they did.
To clarify, the police have not come out with any report. The police are investigating her claim to being mistreated. So the police have not come out and said that she's been violent, and she has not been violent, which several people from within the train can testify to.
Has the reaction around Sweden been what you expected it to be?
It's what I expected it to be once I took it upon myself to discuss that this is not an isolated incident. This is something I've been speaking about on the public platforms for the last year.
Hold on, when you say it's what you expected it to be, do you mean you expected people to get angry about it, or you expected people to say, well, this kind of thing happens, it's okay?
No, I think that many people will say this kind of thing happens, let's just forget about it. But when I discuss these things, I come with statistics and facts that back up that this is not an isolated incident. And that actually enrages people to demand a change in our system, especially in the security guard profession, which we've had several incidents and several issues happening over the last couple of years and well before that.
Sorry, you say you back it up with statistics and facts. That suggests again, and I'm reading between the lines, that this thing happens more often than the outside world thinks. Because when the outside world looks at Sweden, and Lovette, you know this, we all think Sweden is some kind of paradise.
Yes, I spent 10 years of my life living in England before coming back to Sweden, so I'm fully aware of what the outside thinks of Sweden. But they haven't really looked at the statistics that the police have given us, and as well as our Justice Department system. They release a study every year that gives you the statistics of how people are treated based on color here in Sweden. And Black people from the African diaspora are on the top list of violent hate crime in Sweden. That prompted a report in 2014 called the Afrophobia Report that went through the issues that we are facing here in Sweden. Maybe because we're mostly visible via our skin tone, but the reality is very different when you live in Sweden and have lived here for all of your life and you happen to be Black. So despite what the outside world thinks, it's not all peace and quiet here in Sweden. But a lot of it never reaches you or the outside world because media never snaps it up. Media never talks about it unless people like myself question them as to why they are silencing our issues here.
So again, looking at Sweden from the outside, this apparently exemplary model of social justice where the contract between the citizenry and the bureaucracy of government is a very strong one, that the government will take care of people as long as they behave, and they do overall, we believe, from the outside, seem to behave. But then you said this very interesting phrase. You said left or right anti-Blackness is countrywide. Just explain a bit more about that.
What I mean about that, we have a huge polarization in Sweden, but funnily enough, with my work as a public person, the people that are most likely to threaten me come not from the Swedish Democrats, but from what we call Vänster, which is the more liberal, the more democratic people. You will see them with banners and you will know how they vote, but the anti-blackness rolls from both sides. There's a lot of ignorance that spins on both sides. So for me, it's irrelevant if they're right or left.
Okay.
There is an issue with anti-blackness here in Sweden and worldwide.
Okay, so after this, the longest political standoff in Swedish political history, we have now this four-party alliance, which seems to have been created just to keep the right-wing Swedish Democrats out of power. They, the SD, getting 18% almost of the vote in last year's election. That suggests, are we wrong in looking at it, that the major political parties are doing everything they can to keep a party which many people say has Nazi tendencies out of power?
It's the same thing that's happening in Sweden has happened in America. And that there's a big misconception, because when Black Americans speak about racism and a history of anti-blackness, Trump is not the beginning and end of it. In Sweden, Jimmie Akesson is not the beginning and the end of anti-blackness. He's a symptomatic issue, but that it goes much deeper than just him. He's just in charge of the rhetorics, but Sweden has a bigger issue in the system that we're coming out year after year with reports. We came out with another report a few months ago saying how blacks are discriminated. He is just a symptom of a much bigger problem in Sweden, which is that nobody is facing up to the facts of what certain people are facing, because migrants are not aliens here. Most of us are born here and we work here. Our families were born here.
Yeah,
but
and
we're
of
still
course,
looked upon as outside the norm.
Sure, and this is a country that per capita has taken in more refugees than any other nation over the past few years. I'd like to end on a positive note, because there's a picture of you with that lady from the metro having had her baby, or she's just about to have her baby, right? And you were her doula. Did you know her before this incident? What happened in terms of making you that close to her that you're in hospital with her and her new baby?
I realized that people like her are not, there's a lot of people who are alone without family contact. And that is my main job. I run an NGO. I am there for people despite what their colors of their skin is. This incident brought us a little bit closer because she was actually at the brink of losing everything, at the brink of mental anguish and trauma, as with her kids. So I had to step in just as another human being that wanted to help, that wanted to be there financially and practically and help.
And how is she doing now?
Humanity.
How is she doing now? Was it a boy or a girl, and how's the baby?
It was a healthy baby boy that arrived a little bit too early, but is doing swimmingly right now.
Lovette, honestly, it's been such a pleasure to have you on The Newsmaker. Thank you very much indeed.